It is here, the 49ers 2025 NFL schedule. The grand reveal after all those leaks today, some of them correct, some of them incorrect. It is now up right there on the screen for you. So I'm going to go through the schedule. I've got a bunch of pros and cons. The article is now up on the San Francisco Standard as well. So I've got the pros and cons there. There is some hidden stuff in this schedule and some stuff that we're still going to have to calculate as we learn the other NFL schedules. There's 31 other schedules, and we need to know the 49ers opponent schedule so we know who has rest advantages and disadvantages. But the first thing that I can tell you, 5 primetime games for the 49ers. These are the 5 primetime games: at the Rams versus the Atlanta Falcons versus the Carolina Panthers, at the Indianapolis Colts, and versus the Chicago Bears. Now, if we want to go through the entire thing, this actually is bookended by games against the Seattle Seahawks. The 49ers are going to open against Seattle on the road, and they're going to close on either January 3rd or 4th against Seattle at Levi's Stadium. So I did some of the math there. It's about 120 days in between 49ers games against the Seahawks to start and close the regular season. So that's 4 full months. It's going to be either 119 or 120 days exactly. A lot is going to change in between Seahawks game 1 and Seahawks game, well, it's game number 17 of the regular season, but week 18 for the 49ers to finish. And this time, the 49ers certainly hope that they're going to be playing beyond week 18, that they're playing deep into January and into February. But this is the schedule that is going to determine whether or not that happens. I will say, by the record numbers from the previous season, the 49ers have the easiest strength of schedule. So take a look at this. This is a little chart where you can see travel versus strength of schedule. By combined winning percentage from the year before, the 49ers are all the way at the top. That means easy strength of schedule. Miles traveled, the 49ers have the 5th most travel miles. If you want to see the travel miles for this season, well, here you go. 49ers have 28,363 travel miles. As we reported earlier this week, the 49ers do not play an international game this season. The international games are as follows. Minnesota has 2 of them, one in Dublin, one in London, back-to-back weeks. Probably an advantage for them in the second week because they'll be in Europe, and then the Cleveland Browns have to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. The 49ers schedule, when we look at it right here, they have 5 early body clock starts. Now, this is significant. This actually has been statistically shown to hurt West Coast teams. But there is a big caveat there. But first, the early body clock starts for the 49ers come week 6 against Tampa Bay. That means 10 a.m. Pacific time kickoff, 1 p.m. in Tampa Bay. But the 49ers body clocks will essentially be on 10 a.m., which is before their prime athletic performance window. 10 a.m. at Houston on October 26th. 10 a.m. at the New York Giants on November 2nd. And 10 a.m. at the Cleveland Browns on November 30th. So, and New Orleans as well. The New Orleans Saints on September 14th, 10 a.m. for the 49ers. So those are the early body clock starts. The last time the 49ers had 5 early body clock starts, they weren't particularly happy with the league office. In fact, they were part of the contingency that wanted a resolution passed that a West Coast team couldn't get more than 5 early body clock starts, but that, or they had to get less than 5. 5 was too many for the 49ers in 2017. However, the 49ers, I don't think they won that legislation at the owners' meetings. And as you can see, they've got 5 early body clock starts again here in 2025. However, the 49ers play 4 of their 5 primetime games against teams from either the Eastern time zone or the Central Time Zone. Here are those primetime games: LA Rams, Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, Indianapolis Colts, and the Chicago Bears. So you can see that the final four of those games, those are all either Eastern or Central Time Zone teams. There's a Stanford study that came out that showed that West Coast teams have a significant advantage in primetime games against East Coast teams. Because just like the 49ers have a disadvantage in the early body clock start, because 10 a.m. is before their peak athletic window, they're going to be closer to their peak athletic window in the primetime starts against teams that are way past their peak athletic window. At the time of this Stanford study, 63% of games played on Monday Night Football between a West Coast team and an East Coast team were won by the West Coast team. So maybe that helps explain why the 49ers have historically been so good on Monday Night Football. But they have these primetime games this year. I can go through them individually for you. At the LA Rams, that's going to be Thursday Night Football, Prime Video on October 2nd. Then the 49ers play at home against the Atlanta Falcons on October 19th. That is Sunday Night Football against the Falcons. So the Falcons, that game starts at 5:20 p.m. Pacific time. That's going to be 8:20 p.m. for the Falcons on their East Coast body clock. So it's probably not going to get done until like midnight Atlanta time, which is why the study has shown that West Coast teams have that advantage. Then moving forward, the 49ers will play 5:15 p.m. Monday Night Football against the Carolina Panthers on November 24th. That game, ESPN, is Monday Night Football. It's going to be Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. So same kind of deal. Carolina on East Coast time. 49ers should have that body clock advantage. Then there are two primetime games to round out the season, or right before Week 18. There's actually a chance that Week 18 is a primetime game as well. That's either going to be January 3rd or January 4th against the Seahawks. The NFL can flex that into the final Sunday Night Football of the year. They actually did that back in the 2019 season where Dre Greenlaw had to stop against Jacob Hollister at the goal line against the Seahawks. That game was in Seattle. This game, if it means something and the NFL ends up wanting to flex it, would be at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara. So there's actually a chance the 49ers finish this season with 3 consecutive primetime games. As it stands right now, they have 2. At Indianapolis right before Christmas, that's another Monday Night Football game. So 8:15 p.m. Eastern time, 5:15 Pacific. And then against the Chicago Bears, that game is going to be at 5:20 p.m. Pacific time. Sunday Night Football in between Christmas and New Year's. Apparently, the 49ers have not yet released a new uniform. We suspect a new uniform might be coming out this offseason. They've been teasing at something over the course of the buildup to the schedule release. Nothing is released yet, and that's good because we're talking about the schedule right now. Article is up on the San Francisco Standard. Why don't we get that up on the screen? If I can get it up on the screen. Yeah, here it is. The 49ers 2025 schedule analysis, looking at the key pros and the key cons of this 49ers schedule. And there is one big variable that we're still waiting to solve. Mike is going to be doing the research right now. I'm sure there are a lot of people doing research on this one key variable as we speak. It just wasn't possible to do it until we saw everybody else's schedule. But I can put the article up on the screen for you. This is live right now on the San Francisco Standard. Why don't you guys go check this out? Mike, can you toss this into the description, please? And I will tell you guys what the one key variable is, because I did write that up on the Standard. So the big question is net rest differential. This is what screwed the 49ers last year, to put it bluntly. Last season, the 49ers had a net rest differential of negative 22. Here's what it looked like in chart format. These are the worst net rest differentials since 2002. From 2002 to 2024, the NFL scheduled 704 schedules. 704 schedules were made. That's 32 times however many years there were in those 2+ decades. The 49ers between 2023 and 2024, two schedules they received from the NFL had two of the three worst schedules in that 704 schedule stretch from 2002 to 2024 in terms of net rest differential. What is net rest differential? Well, if you play a game on Sunday after you played a game on Monday, you have one fewer day of rest than the standard. And say that the team that you're playing on that Sunday did not play Monday Night Football the week prior. They're going to have one extra day of rest, right? Or they can have a full 4 days of extra rest if they played the prior Thursday. So just in the example that I put out there right now, though, if a team plays Sunday and then the following Sunday, but they play against the 49ers who played Monday and then they play the following Sunday, the 49ers are going to be -1 in net rest differential in that case. And then you're going to add it up over the course of the whole season. If you're playing a team that's coming off of its bye week and you're not coming off of your bye week, that's an immediate -7 in net rest differential. So you can see how that's going to add up big time. Last year, the 49ers ended up being -22 in net rest differential, which, if you look here, was one of the worst numbers that we have ever seen. These are the worst net rest differentials since 2002. The 49ers were at third worst. And if you included the playoffs for San Francisco last year, because in 2020, actually, no, 2023, they had a good net rest differential in the playoffs. But in 2002, they also had a bad rest differential because they had to go and they had to play in that wild card round. Anyway, I'm only looking at 2023 and 2024, which both find this list for the 49ers. And it was so bad last year at -22, one of the worst numbers that we had ever seen. It's very easy to understand why the 49ers were so upset that the league did not set them up particularly gracefully, not gracefully at all, for the 2024 season. And lo and behold, the 49ers exited the 2024 season decimated by injury, exhausted, because you think that on top of this net rest differential disadvantage, they had played 60 games in 3 seasons entering 2024. So this was a bruised and battered team. And then they had to deal with this crazy scheduling disadvantage last season. So we need to find out what the net rest differential in 2025 is. My first goal with this video was to bring you the schedule as soon as it officially came out. So that's what we have here. Mike just sent me the prior year net rest differential, which we obviously put up on the screen. Now we need to find out what happens in 2025. That is the one hidden part of this schedule that is probably the most important, because we already knew all the opponents for the 49ers entering this 2025 schedule release. Today was just a matter of when the 49ers are playing these opponents. And when the 49ers are playing these opponents, coupled with the opponent's schedules, is going to determine who has the rest disadvantages or advantages entering these games. And this is a huge deal. This is a league of tiny margins. And especially for a team like the 49ers, last year it was pronounced because they had played so many games in prior seasons due to their deep playoff runs. But an extra day of rest, 2 extra days of rest, 22 extra days of rest when you added it up for their opponents, I think that was enough to be backbreaking for San Francisco in 2024. So we're going to be waiting for those numbers to come in. You could be sure that I'm going to dedicate an entire video to those numbers because they are significant. First, though, we have to wait for those numbers to come in, and I can actually go over the preseason for you. The 49ers have 3 preseason games, just like the rest of the league. There are no fixed dates for these preseason games, but the opponents have been determined. The 49ers are going to be facing the Denver Broncos at home in the preseason. That game is going to happen at some point between August 7th and August 10th. The 49ers will also be hosting a joint practice with the Broncos. That's going to happen, I would guess, 2 days before that preseason game. The 49ers are finalizing their new practice fields They have reoriented or will be reorienting. Probably by next week, we'll see the reoriented practice fields because they were able to tear out the one that was artificial surface. Now the entire complex is natural grass. It gives room for them to rotate their practice fields 90 degrees. And that means they're no longer will be practicing on 80-yard fields. They're going to have two side-by-side 100-yard fields, which should make it a lot easier to host a joint practice. In fact, the 49ers hadn't hosted a joint practice since 2017, the first year of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. And it was the Broncos who came in 2017, but they decided not to host another joint practice after that because it was too cramped for both the 49ers and the Broncos. So now they're going to have these reoriented practice fields. Mike and I were talking about this before I went live. We really think the 49ers can use a joint practice, especially with all these young players. They're going to have a ton of rookies in training camp, maybe close to 20 rookies in training camp for the 49ers. Well, any opportunity that you have to work against other NFL competition, because you're going to be sick of practicing against yourself after a couple weeks of training camp. Any opportunity like that, I think, is going to be really beneficial. Last year, the 49ers were supposed to have joint practices against the Saints before the Saints played a preseason game at Levi's Stadium. But that didn't work out because San Francisco had too many injuries. And they said, we can't even run a joint practice. So this year, the joint practice is going to come for the 49ers against the Denver Broncos, health permitting. We can all knock on wood. Nobody likes injuries in the NFL. So health permitting, they're going to host the Broncos on that new practice field. Preseason week 2, that's going to be the only road game of the preseason. It is going to be a trip to Las Vegas to face the Raiders. Now, I think there might be a non-zero chance that the 49ers have a joint practice with the Raiders. I mean, that's an AFC team. Pete Carroll's the coach over there. You don't have to worry about Pete Carroll as an NFC West coach anymore. So maybe they also do squeeze in a joint practice against the Raiders. That would be at some point before a game that has a window of August 14th to 18th, the second week of the preseason. And then there is the preseason finale against Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers. So we're going to get to see Jim make his return to Levi's Stadium for the first time since he and the 49ers mutually parted ways. That was the official language back in the end of the 2014 season. The preseason game against the Chargers to round out those 3 games will happen at some point between August 21st and August 24th. So Denver, Las Vegas, and the Chargers before this, the 49ers regular season 2025 schedule, which you see there. I made it big right in front of you. 49ers have 5 primetime games, their 4th straight season with at least 5 primetime games. They have the easiest strength of schedule in the entire NFL. You can take a look at that right here. I think this graph representation is a little bit better, though. The higher up you are on the graph, the easier your schedule is, but they do have to travel a lot, which is why they are in the upper left. Speaking of that, they've got the 5th most travel miles. You can see that here, 28,363 travel miles. But the 49ers are not going to Europe. There are 6 international games, 1 in Brazil, 5 in Europe. The 49ers do not have a European or Brazilian game this year. And I think last year, for example, if we want to compare this, the 49ers had about 30,000 travel miles. This year, it's a little bit better, actually, 28,363 for the 49ers. And, you know, there's really no way around this as a West Coast team. I mean, just look at this. We go back here. Notice that the Chargers, the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers, those are the 4 teams that are located on the Pacific Ocean, on the West Coast. Those are the 4 teams that make up the top 5. And then the 5th team in the top 5 ahead of the 49ers even is an Atlantic Coast team in Jacksonville. But it's the West Coast teams that are further away than anybody from the other cities. So they're consistently going to be at the top of this travel mile list. And if you can be better off than the Chargers, who have to, I think, don't they go down to Brazil? Yeah, I think the Chargers go down to Brazil to start the season. So they have to do West Coast Pacific travel on top of a trip all the way down to South America. ends up being 37,000 travel miles for the Chargers. I would think that is a new NFL record. 5 early body clock starts for the 49ers, but they play 4 of their 5 primetime games against teams in the Eastern and Central time zones. So there is literally a Stanford study. I mean, if you want the most in-depth breakdown of the schedule there is, I cite Stanford studies in this. It's up on the San Francisco Standard. Link is in the description. The Stanford study has shown that West Coast teams have an advantage in primetime games over East Coast teams, and the 49ers have quite a few games. So maybe the NFL essentially even that out. I know a lot of you are going to be sticklers, and you're going to say, well, there's 5 early body clock starts for the 49ers and only 4 of these primetime games against teams not in the Pacific time zone. But I think overall, I mean, if you look at the strength of schedule, this is a last place schedule for the 49ers. So they get to play last place teams. Last year and the year prior, the 49ers had a first place schedule. So the last place schedule changes things for San Francisco. They get to play the Giants, who were 3-14 last year. They get to play the Chicago Bears, who were 5-12 last year, and they get to play the New Orleans Saints, who were 3-14 last year. So you get to play the other cellar dwellers from the NFC West. The 49ers themselves were 6-11 in 2024. On top of that, the natural division rotation means that the 49ers get to play, and the entire NFC West gets to play the AFC South. And the AFC South was the worst division in all of football last year. There wasn't a single team in the AFC South last year that finished with a positive point differential. The division champions, the Houston Texans, finished with an even point differential. I think it was 372 points for, 372 points against for the Houston Texans. But the rest of the teams, the Colts, 8-9, the Jags, 4-13, and the Titans, 3-14, who were so bad that they earned the number 1 pick. The rest of those teams weren't any good. So between the last place schedule and the natural rotation to play the AFC South, the 49ers have what is considered to be, by the record, the easiest strength of schedule in football. It's the 49ers, the Patriots, and the Saints that get to benefit from this. And those are all, I think, last place teams, right, from last year. I know the Saints definitely are. The Patriots weren't very good last year either. So last place teams have easier strength of schedule. That's how the NFL works. The NFL tries to drag as much parity as possible into all of this. In seasons like 2023 and 2024, that made it more challenging for the 49ers since they had won their division the year prior. But in season like 2025, it theoretically should make things easier for the 49ers. Why don't we look at the actual mechanics of the 49ers schedule on a week-by-week basis? First, at Seattle for San Francisco. That is coming at 1:05 p.m. It's going to be an early start for the 49ers, but not an early body clock start. It's not going to be a primetime game against Seattle. Afternoon on the West Coast. That's going to be on Fox to open the season. Now, the 49ers have won 4 straight games in Seattle. Or are they going for their 4th? I'm thinking 2022, 2023. No, they're going for their 4th straight win in Seattle, which has never happened before. They won in 2022. That was that might have been the Thanksgiving game. No, that was the clincher with Brock Purdy playing hurt. 2023 was the Thanksgiving game where they got their turkey-eating revenge. 2024, despite the 6-11 finish, the 49ers won in Seattle on Thursday night last year. So if they can win the season opener at Seattle, the 49ers will have won 4 straight times in Seattle, which is hard to believe, hard to wrap my head around, especially since I watched a lot of this team in the Jim Harbaugh years where it was almost impossible to win in Seattle. They won that game in 2011, then they couldn't win it again under Jim Harbaugh, even though they had some good rosters facing up against the Seahawks, who also had good rosters. So opportunity right away for the 49ers at Seattle. They don't face the Seahawks again for another 119 or 120 days, another 4 months, because it's the season finale when they host the Seahawks at Levi's. So a lot's going to happen in between. It's the Seattle bookend for this 2025 regular season. Then the 49ers head to New Orleans on September 14th. Now, my own personal preference, I know the game's inside. And it's cold in the Superdome, especially up in the press box. They've got the AC just blasting in from the roof. So it's actually a massive temperature differential from inside to outside. But just personal preference wise, and I know a lot of 49ers fans are going to make this trip. And New Orleans, yes, it's got some great food and great culture and walkability and a lot of drinking. I understand all that. New Orleans, great city. You know, one of the three great American cities: San Francisco, New Orleans, and New York City. You know, maybe honorable mention Boston. Philly people are going to have something to say. I know Chicago people are going to have something to say. But New Orleans is on the Mount Rushmore for sure, right? The problem is that it's going to be hot. I mean, it's going to be so hot on September 14th. Now, the game's inside. That's fine. I'm just sticking up for those of you who want to go outside on Bourbon Street and get ready. It's going to be muggy. It's going to be hot. I actually just talked to somebody from Louisiana today, and I mentioned New Orleans and I mentioned September 14th, and they were like, it's going to be muggy. It's going to be hot. They know it doesn't really cool off there until like mid-October. So be ready to deal with that. Speaking of hot, on September 21st, the 49ers face the Cardinals in the sunshine at Levi's Stadium. This happened last year as well. It was a little bit later in the season, but it was that 100-plus degree game at Levi's that the Cardinals ended up winning at the very end. I mean, that was brutal, brutal heat. Well, the schedule sets the 49ers and the Cardinals up for something similar in this 2025 season. And I think that's a potential disadvantage for the 49ers because Arizona can host some practices outside, and I think they do. They have an indoor bubble, but they can also do some stuff outside. That's a desert team, and they may get to play in desert conditions against the 49ers at Levi's Stadium on September 21st. We know how hot it gets on that sunny side of the stands, and we know that the fans like to retreat into the club level. We might see a little bit more of that happening on September 21st. Then on September 28th, another warm weather team comes to Levi's, and we know that entire first month, I would even say the entire first 6 weeks can potentially be really, really hot at Levi's Stadium. Well, there are going to be 2 afternoon games in that window against Arizona and against Jacksonville. And as you know, both Arizona and Jacksonville, those are both warm weather climate teams that might be a little bit more acclimated to that. Now, the 49ers have training camp outside at Santa Clara, so hopefully they're as acclimated as possible for their sake. But just for the fans' perspective, a lot of this I look at from the fans' perspective. I see heat in New Orleans. Game will be inside. Then I see heat in Santa Clara on the 21st and the 28th. And those games obviously will both be outside. Then it's a short week. That's the 49ers' first short week turnaround. I'm sure the Rams have a week 4 game as well. The NFL wouldn't make the 49ers play the Rams coming off a bye. By the way, the bye for the 49ers not until week 14. How about that? I know I haven't mentioned that yet. The week 14 bye is the first time the 49ers have ever had a bye in week 14. That is not until December 7th. Really, really late in the season for San Francisco. So that's definitely worth noting. But back to the schedule, they go to LA on the short week, and I think that's preferable for the 49ers. You don't want to have to fly back east for a Thursday game. So simply flying down to LA shouldn't take too much toll on their bodies, and they play the Rams in that game on October 2nd, Thursday Night Football, Prime Video. A little bit more rest for the 49ers before they turn around and head to Tampa Bay. We talk about heat. It could still be warm in Florida on October 12th. Now, I know that it could start cooling off a little bit, but last year they got to play at Tampa in November, and it was a toasty one outside because it's Tampa. So I would expect another hot game in Tampa on October 12th. So you're looking at when it comes to outdoor conditions, and Seattle probably won't be all too warm, but if it's ever going to be warm in Seattle, it'll be earlier, right? September 7th, the season opener. You could see a lot of hot weather for the 49ers, whether they're playing inside or outside over the course of the first several weeks. I mean, October, we know in the Bay Area it's summer in San Francisco. Unfortunately, the 49ers are on the road, far away from San Francisco, on Fleet Week. And that is like the Super Bowl for San Francisco, right? Everybody's partying on the rooftops. I think the NFL probably even used to try to schedule the 49ers a home game on Fleet Week when they played at Candlestick. By the way, Fleet Weekend is going to be October 12th. They're going to be at Tampa. Because they used to be able to, the Blue Angels used to be able to buzz over Candlestick Park during games. They moved down to Levi's. I don't think there's as much of a tie now between the NFL scheduling and Fleet Week. But unfortunately, the 49ers will not be playing a home game on Fleet Week. Probably unfortunately for me, I'll be in Tampa Bay instead on October 12th. But the very next week, congratulations to my cousin Clayton, who's getting married in San Diego on October 18th. Congratulations to him. That's going to be great. And I could actually make that wedding on October 18th because the 49ers play a game against the Atlanta Falcons on the 19th. And it isn't until Sunday night football. So the scheduling gods actually worked out in Clayton's favor there. I know he's a big 49ers fan, so he'll be able to watch the 49ers the day after he gets married. October 26th, the 49ers head to Houston. That game is going to be indoors. And then here comes the fun one. Because in 2020, the 49ers had 2 games scheduled where they would get to stay in New York City. I know that the Jets and the Giants both play in New Jersey. The only team in the state of New York is the Buffalo Bills. But you stay in Manhattan, right? I would hope that you would try to stay in Manhattan if you're going to this game against the New York Giants. Well, in 2020, that essentially got wiped out because not many people were traveling. The media didn't travel. The teams did, but the stadium was empty in back-to-back weeks at MetLife Stadium for the 49ers against the Jets and then against the New York Giants. That was weeks 2 and 3 of 2020. At long last, the 49ers get to head back to New York again, and this time we'll be able to go with them to New York City. And I think that's a perfect time of the year to go to New York City. Fall on the East Coast, beautiful. November 2nd at New York, that is one of the early body clock starts for San Francisco. Following that, they come back home and they face the Rams at home. Then they go to Arizona. Those are both afternoon games. Then comes a primetime game, a little extra rest maybe for San Francisco and the net rest differential. We'll take a look at that in a little bit, but that's going to happen against the Carolina Panthers. Monday Night Football on November 24th. Then they head to Cleveland. Now, Cleveland, the last time the 49ers were in Cleveland was in 2023, and they played there in, I think, week 6. So it was October. It was right around the first half of October. And the wind was a factor. Jake Moody missed a couple field goals, including the potential game winner against the Cleveland Browns that day. The wind might have been a factor, but at least it wasn't bitterly cold in Cleveland. There is a chance, perhaps a strong one, that this weather is not good in Cleveland on November 30th. So take it for what it's worth, but the 49ers are playing in Cleveland rather late in the season. Then comes the Week 14 bye. Now, there have been times the 49ers have had a very early bye. Week 4 in 2019 comes to mind. There have been times when they've had a midseason bye. This time they have a really late bye. Is this an advantage, disadvantage? You never really know until you get into the season and you see a team's health report, because that usually determines whether a team is going to really benefit from the bye week or not. So you can essentially rule out week 4 buys as advantages early on, but the rest of the buys you don't know, because week 4, it's a little too early, knock on wood, for too many guys to be hurt, right? I think that the week 14 bye is really interesting for the 49ers in the context of the fact that they're going to have a lot of rookies on this team. They just had 11 draft picks. They're going to have almost 20 rookies in camp. Maybe they do have 20 rookies in camp. We talk a lot about the rookie wall. So when you look at this schedule, rookies typically, like the SEC championship game is going to happen on the 49ers bye week, December 7th. Or December 6th, probably. Yeah, December 6th, the day before. It's a Saturday. So college guys are used to having their season start to wrap up around early December, late November. I know with the college football playoff, things are changing now, but it doesn't change what players' bodies have been trained for. And the guys who have come out of college football and joined the league here in recent years, their bodies, I think, are still most acclimated to football that starts wrapping up, starts winding down at the end of November, moving into December. So maybe the bye week is going to be good for the 49ers rookies at that exact spot, because they're going to be able to take a little rest, recalibrate after where their college football season would have ended, and then they could move forward into the final home stretch. And the 49ers hope that this is not it. They hope that they're still 4 games after that, right? Tennessee, Indianapolis, Chicago, Seattle, and the 49ers want to move on to the playoffs. They want, what would it take? If they had the first round bye, it would be 2 games plus the Super Bowl, but in all likelihood, it would take 4 games to reach and win the Super Bowl for the 49ers. So that's an interesting nugget in this schedule, is that week 14 bye. Do you think it's too late? It's definitely unusually late. The 49ers have never had a week 14 bye. But it actually might end up playing out in the 49ers' advantage when we look at this schedule. Finally, versus Tennessee, that's an afternoon game. Cam Ward and the Titans coming into Levi's December 14th. Christmas happens right after that Indy Monday Night Football game on December 22nd. And then there is the game against the Chicago Bears. That is coming week 17 on NBC. Prime time for the 49ers, Caleb Williams and the Bears. That precedes the season finale against the Seattle Seahawks, which will come 119 or 120 days after the season opener against the Seahawks. So not often do you see a season bookended by games against the same team, but and a divisional rival at that. But this season, the scheduling gods decided that it would be so. Check out the San Francisco Standard. We've got the hidden pros and cons of this schedule. The 49ers have 4 games against playoff teams from last year, 2 against the Rams, 2 against, and then 1 against the Texans and 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That, to me, does not seem like a lot. The 49ers are playing 0 teams coming off of a bye this year. So the data is starting to come out. I think the 49ers are going to have a really good net rest differential, guys. They have 0. That's huge. This is from Josh Dubow of the AP. I have to retweet this. Wow. The NFL seems to be doing the 49ers a favor a year after they played multiple teams coming off a bye and had a minus 22 net rest differential. They had they had a staggering. So the 49ers are going to be in much better position this year. I know that for sure based on the information that's coming out about the net rest differential. That is the big question here. It's the one that we can't answer right away until people start looking at all the schedules and cross-comparing them. But hopefully I can stay with you on this live until the 49ers figure out what exactly the net rest differential is. Your questions are welcome now. I think that I'll be headed into the chat section, the Q&A, to check it out in a little bit. And this right here is the end of the 49ers schedule release video. So I'm going to play it because apparently it has a tease to something. So give me a chance to set this up and play what is the end of the 49ers schedule release video. Mike just sent this to me, and here we go. So they left us on a cliffhanger. I think the 49ers are going to unveil a new jersey. We'll see what it looks like. I know they have their color scheme set up. They have the Gold Rush color. They have Montana red, primetime black. They have the old tribute cream, I think, was in there too. More news seems to be coming from the 49ers. One of these games I would expect to feature some kind of primetime uniform. They used to do the color rush right on Thursday night, and we'll see what the case on the uniform front is there. Anyway, in the description, you've got the article up on the San Francisco Standard. There you go. Check that out, and I will also toss the schedule up there for you as we talk about it here on the show. So questions are welcome here on the channel. I think Bo has the best comment about that video that the Niners sent us. That was anticlimactic. Yes, it was. Unfortunately, but we'll have more news. We'll have another video to go through and talk about moving forward in that regard whenever the jersey does come out. They are installing the new Jumbotrons. They're going to have the most screen space of any North American stadium once this is done. The construction is ongoing at Levi's Stadium. They're building it right now, and it is not, I don't think it's all too far from being finished. They only have a couple more months. And I think they're going to be hosting some soccer games as well this summer. So I think that needs to be done sooner rather than later. It's obviously preparing for the Super Bowl, which is going to be at Levi's Stadium to close next season. So if you want to run this schedule all the way to its very end, well, hopefully the 49ers, from their perspective, they want to be playing in that Super Bowl. But if you want to put playoffs onto there and you want to put location, we do know that the Super Bowl will be at Levi's. We know that the World Cup will be at Levi's. The venue will be hosting both. First venue to ever host both in the same year. And the new screens are there for that. What is the best game to watch this year? There's no way to know until these games are actually played. Sometimes one can sneak up on you. But as I'm looking at the schedule right now, usually I like to pick something a little bit later this season once teams have established themselves. I think the game at Houston is going to be awesome. 49ers get to see D'Amico Ryans and their former staff. That's going to be a great chess match. It's one of the 2024 playoff teams that they get to face. I mean, I'm always excited for games at places where the 49ers don't often travel to. So Cleveland, that could be cool for San Francisco. It's an easier schedule based on prior year's performance than years prior. So hard to answer that, Mike, but I could do my best. I like the fact they're bookending against the Seahawks. You're going to be able to measure progress from week 1 to week 18. Mike thinks the Bears game is going to be good. Which one am I most excited to travel to? So I got a question today. Somebody asked me, should I go to Houston? Should I go to, what was the other one? They had a few options. I think Tampa, Houston, or Cleveland. Maybe it wasn't Tampa. Yeah, Tampa wasn't on there. But basically, Houston it was Indianapolis, Houston, and Cleveland. And I said, hands down, Cleveland. Cleveland's a low-key good food city. Like, I ate well in Cleveland last year. I'm not a Houston fan. I'm not an Indy fan. You guys know that from the NFL Combine that we have to go to every year. I actually think that Cleveland is higher on the pecking order than Houston or Indianapolis. Now, there are other road cities here that beat both of those, and I think the crown jewels of the NFL road circuit are both on this year's schedule for the 49ers. I mean, New Orleans. How could you not like visiting New Orleans for a football weekend? And then New York City. I mean, say what you want about New York City. It's too crowded. There are too many rats, whatever. It's still New York City. And the 49ers haven't been there in a few years. And the last time they were there, hardly anybody was traveling. That was 2020. So they get to go to New York City in peak fall, right? November 2nd. I love that. Maybe it's a little too early to go to New Orleans because of the heat on September 14th. If you're a big Bourbon Street kind of person, if you're not the type of person that likes the sole of your shoe melting into the asphalt, maybe don't go to New Orleans on September 14th. But I think it's a great food city. It's a great drinking city. So is New York, and the 49ers have both of those. Tampa, those of you who like warm weather, maybe a little beach time. What is it? Clearwater Beach. Tampa is on October 12th. But I'm most looking forward to New York on November 2nd. They're playing the New York Giants. You can see the schedule there right next to me. You know, I wonder why the 49ers didn't get an international game too. They were possibilities for Berlin and for London, right? Two of their opponents were playing in those two cities, but instead they're going to go to Cleveland and Indianapolis. So Cleveland and Indianapolis instead of Berlin and London. Unfortunate, but that's just the way that it shook out this year. Yep, New York City, they call it MetDeath Stadium. Not good memories. Not a good field in New York. And, well, you know, why don't we look at artificial turf? Seattle, right here. You could see where they're playing on, because this could impact some of the return to play decisions. Seattle, artificial turf. New Orleans, artificial turf. Home for 2 games. And then the PUP list, like if you put somebody on PUP, but they're not going to be eligible to return until week 5. LA, that's artificial turf. Tampa Bay, that's natural grass. That's good. Atlanta, it's going to be natural grass at home. Houston is turf. New York, that's the dreaded New York artificial turf. That's grass versus LA at home. At Arizona, natural grass. They carted in there. That's cool. It's on tracks. Carolina is going to be grass. If I remember correctly, Cleveland is grass. I think it's grass. If somebody can confirm that, that'd be great. Tennessee is going to be grass at home. Indy's turf, and then 2 games on grass to end the season for the 49ers. Say no to turf. Michael says the 49ers deserve this easier 2025 schedule. I like the fact they have those primetime games against a lot of East Coast and Central Time Zone teams. Wow. The Vikings beginning to the season. This is wild. They start with Monday Night Football week 1, Sunday Night Football week 2. Then they play an early game in week 3. Then they play a Dublin game. Then they play a London game. So they'll be in Europe. Bye week. And then Thursday Night Football in week 8. So they play 2 afternoon standard games in the U.S., but they have 3 primetime games, Monday, Sunday, and Thursday night, and 2 Europe games, all in the first half of the season. Congratulations to the Minnesota Vikings. That's one of the wildest stretches that I think I've ever seen covering the NFL. That is crazy. There's only one possibility for the 49ers to stay away from the Bay Area in between games, and that is between the Houston game and the New York Giants game. It is still a 3.5-hour flight from Houston to New York City. But they would eliminate one of those or 2 of those flights, really. So it'd be a chance to get out of there, although maybe United Airlines will deliver one of its premium Polaris planes. I mean, you see that yesterday, all the lay flat suites that United Airlines is coming out with. I don't think those planes are supposed to deliver to the end of the season. Maybe the 49ers is United's the official airline of the 49ers. Maybe the 49ers get one of those planes early. Maybe the travel will be even more luxurious for them. But anyway, you could take away some of the travel miles by staying back east in between those two games. That would be between New York City and Houston and New York City. But that would be the only opportunity on this schedule between November 2nd and November 9th for some of that to make sense. All right, guys, 49 minutes for the schedule release. I love that. If you're constantly on the move or just tired of skipping meals, Huel has you covered. They're today's sponsor, spelled Huel, and their Black Edition ready to drink is a total game changer. It's a complete meal in one bottle with 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, high fiber and low sugar, so you feel full, focused, and ready for your day. No prep, no cleanup, just grab and go. Huel's already sold over 500 million meals around the world, and now it's your turn to try it. New customers get 15% off plus a free gift at Huel.com when you use my code Lombardi. Don't miss out. Try it today. That is 15% off plus a free gift for new customers using my exclusive code Lombardi at Huel.com. Please see our description for the terms and conditions. Skip the stress, not the nutrition. Try Huel today for complete nutrition bottled. We will be back a little bit later with the net rest differential once that's all calculated. But the good news for the 49ers is that they do not play a single team coming off of its bye week. They played like 4 or 5 last year. It was brutal. So things are a lot better for San Francisco this year. More on the schedule, the most in-depth piece on the schedule that there is. It's number 1 on Google already. It's up on the San Francisco Standard. Go check it out. Link is in the description. Everybody, thanks for watching. This has been the live reaction to the 49ers 2025 schedule. Hit the like, hit the sub button. Check everything out. Check out the San Francisco Standard. We'll see you very soon.